Hello and welcome to my studio. I want to thank the Fiore Art Center and the Maine Farmland Trust for inviting me to this virtual residency and allowing me to share my beautiful state and project with you guys. This summer I've been working with the farmers of Kentucky to build a photographic project that documents the state of the state, which in a little more specific terms of the state of each county, is I'm learning that each county is different from the next in Kentucky. So I've spent a lot of time driving around and finding out what's going on. What's the landscape? What's the agricultural crop that's popular in that region? What are the things they're doing really well? What are the issues in that county? Some places there aren't any issues. Some places they're struggling to survive. And the project isn't just a feature of just documenting the issues of that state, but also just to show off the beauty as well of some of these locations and these families, these wonderful families that invited me into their space. So I'd like to share just a couple of pictures with you to kind of give you a little update of where I'm at right now and where I'm continuing from now, okay? So the first picture is just actually my car on top of a hill in a farm in Woodford County, just kind of showing how everyone's let me do whatever they want. They're letting me they're giving me full access to their properties. And I think this is one of the higher points I hit in the central Kentucky area, was getting on top of the hill to kind of get a view of this farm from above, which is it's not one of my art pieces, but it's definitely just was a pleasant part of my day upon arrival. But I wanted to go back to my county that my father's family is originally from. This is Trigg County, really close to Cadiz, Kentucky. Which is where a lot of my ancestors from. And I met up with a farmer that was using their H-2A employees to work on their tobacco crop. And what you can see they're doing here is they're snapping off the tops, the flowers of the tobacco plant, and they're spraying this oil into the tops that prevent the flower from growing back. That flower sucks a lot of the nutrients from the rest of the plant. So it's a very labor-intensive job that they have to do by hand. This farmer is actually was raised on a farm, but spent his whole life as a coal miner. He worked in the coal mines of Breathitt County in eastern Kentucky up till a few years ago when the coal mine went out of business. Instead of leaving town, he just started up a lifestyle he remembered from his childhood. So he started planting tomatoes, and he became a beekeeper. He's one of the few people in the area that does maple syrup in the holler behind him. So you can see that his red barn in the background, and that's actually the end of the road. So he has this kind of holler to himself. And it's not easy land to work in. He has very little flat land. He has to work on these steep slopes. So it's a very vertical farm. One of the youngest farmers that I was working with, who's only 24, works a huge plot of land and rents a lot of property. His biggest business is actually renting out his gear to other farmers. So there's a specialty equipment. This combine is a good example of that. So when I met up with him, he's actually east of me, and 2 counties east. But I met him in a county south of me because he was hired to thresh a bunch of wheat in Clark County. So this is after a long day of being in the combine, pulling down the wheat. And a storm's kind of coming in. Lightning's about to strike, just actually like a few minutes later in that same field. This is back in Breathitt County. I met up with people that actually work with farmers. It's really important to not just work with farmers, but people that are auxiliary to them as well, people that their livelihood is based on them. This is actually a slaughterhouse and a butcher up in, I think it's really close to the border of Wolfe County and Breathitt County. And what they do is they not only butcher animals, but they'll do the slaughter there. Now, since they're not USDA approved, they can only slaughter animals for private use. So this is actually the farmer's pig for them to eat themselves. They're not going to sell it. But it's a pretty rudimentary operation, and it's a locals that work there. And in the next room, they butcher them down and refrigerate them until the client picks them up. One thing I thought was interesting was that the kid on the right, he had lost his job at UPS during COVID, and he was complaining how that job was seriously hard work, and I'll never work there again. Thank God I have this job, which I thought was telling of working in agricultural and in slaughterhouses. I actually have a few pictures here of this wonderful family in Breathitt County I met really early on. That it reminded me that the easiest person to photograph is a kid, because kids love cameras, and kids are they'll totally disarm themselves for you. They have nothing to hide. In fact, it was so hard to kind of get the kid out of the frame, because they just wanted to dance and dance and dance and dance. And eventually, I think the picture I like the most from that farm is I have a picture of the whole family, of them harvesting strawberries. But I just love the picture of this kid just kind of hamming it up for the camera. And I shared the pictures with the whole family, kind of hoping they'd see how long she stood in front of my lens before I eventually got to move around the farm a little more. There are other situations where I set up the camera for a group portrait, and the lighting just changes. I'm just lucky something switches here. Now, this picture is a family in Anderson County, which is a little bit west of Lexington. They harvest. They're a very small scale operation. They call it no-till farming. And it reminded me that there are more issues than just the agricultural issues that affect farmers, but also such things as daycare. So they're a young couple, and they have 2 kids, and they can't afford to pay for daycare that's not nearby anyway. So they have to watch their kids while they're working in the fields all the time. And I noticed that when I was walking around their property, I constantly saw toys just half embedded in the soil everywhere. And they said, this farm is just one big playground because we always need the kids near us while we're working. So it slows them down to have to put the kids down for a nap or watch them for a while. Just thinking how hard it is to be a farmer, especially when you can't afford, or what isn't available, some things that just make life a little easier, such as daycare. But like I said, lighting shifted on me. So this was actually just a light test where the kid was, hamming it up for me in front of the camera, which I appreciate them doing that. And the sun just kind of the sun hid behind a cloud for a second, and my little strobe lights caught this wonderful light around the kid in the background, got this nice dark blue, and then the sun came back out for the family portrait. So even though they're very similar pictures, I feel like there's a huge difference between the two in the way that the light captures them, the mood. Not saying one is better than the other, but you just need a little bit of luck on your hands. I'm going to leave with just a couple pictures here that are for what I'm going to continue to hunt for, because this project isn't going to end after this residency. I live here. This is my home. I'd like to continue to venture around and learn more about my state. And one thing that I've always found mysterious, being from Eastern Kentucky, where this happens, is the kudzu. Now, I'm born and raised kind of central Western Kentucky, where there's not a lot of kudzu, but whenever we went to the mountains in the east, we always see this just kind of take over in the summer. Around this time of year in late summer, it's pretty much taken over most of the sides of all the highways and ravines. And I always find it so mysterious because you no longer can tell which tree is which by the time it covers it up. This was actually a couple months ago where it's not quite covered the tree yet. But they kind of, they're the bane of most farmers because they'll take over a lot of your slopes and land and dry out. They're kind of a fire hazard. But they do prevent erosion, which was one of the reasons they were originally brought over to the United States. But I just find something so mysterious about them constantly covering up the landscape. So I plan to be venturing around and trying to document more of it and including it with portraits of some of the farmers in the area. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week, where I can share even more information about the project I've been working on this summer. Thanks. Farewell.